I'm very happy to be joined here by some amazing individuals, a lot of talent on the screen. I'm excited to join everyone here on behalf of my friends over at Latinx House. So last year, I had a film. I was lucky enough to participate in a film. You guys know how it is. You know, it's like shooting darts when it comes to this movie. So they make it to Sundance, and you're like, we got to make it there. And we're gonna be excited. But we did a film called Blast Beat, and it premiered at Sundance. Our entire team made it to the Latinx House, and the Latinx House kind of became our home. And I'm excited to pump up the Latinx House because that's never been done at Sundance, right? Now Sundance has never had a place to kind of celebrate our Latino culture, and most importantly, our filmmakers and our storytellers, who are having a big week, at Sundance, celebrating whether it's a short or a film or a premiere. They're there to celebrate and uplift you. So it was the first time for the Latinx community, and they had a physical place. It was like a home. We all gathered at the festival, and we celebrated our film and our work. And everybody, if you were Latino, you heard that they were going to play Celia Cruz over there, and that the tequila was flowing. So we all showed up. And every single day we end up at the Latinx House and network and got to know each other. And that was important because it's very rare when we get a chance to celebrate each other in a setting like that. In Sundance is a special place. I know Clifton knows what I'm talking about because, we've been at Sundance multiple times in different occasions. And you know how special it is for us and how proud we are to be at Sundance when this happens. So we're going to get a little bit more in depth when it comes to that. This year Sundance, as you know, looks a little different, and but they're still going to provide a platform for artists and creators to shine a spotlight on their work. And at the Latinx House, they really want to shine a spotlight on the Latinx actors that are here with the films this year, and that's really important because we're going to have a window in entertainment, and I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about that. The wave is coming, right? And I feel like Clifton and I, the old guys in this call, we've been here for a minute, so we've seen a few waves coming. But it really certainly seems like the generation, the studios, the networks, and most importantly, the audiences are ready for a more colorful screen. And that's why this conversation is important, because we're here to represent all of that. So I'm thrilled to be joined here today with some amazing actors, Alessandra, Annie, Clifton, and Tenet. Incredible actors who are going to be experiencing some Sundance virtual fun. Thankfully you guys don't have to bring the big jackets or anything. You guys can enjoy from the comfort of your home, I guess. But I wanted to start off with a couple little questions, just kind of get to know you guys a little bit. And why don't we start in order? You guys can introduce yourselves and the film that that you guys are portraying. So let's start with Alessandra. And I know that Anna, you guys are also sharing the same film, right? You guys are together. So let's introduce yourself.
So we're identical twins.
Yeah, yes. Sure.
Yeah, so I'm Alessandra Mesa. I'm actor and co-writer of the film Superior.
I'm Ani. I acted in the film Superior. We played identical twins in the movie as well. So it's kind of it's very separate from our experience, but in that way, it is.
Being very serious about it, so I think you're gonna have to tell us more about that because it seems like there's some Jews there. Let's go to Nach. Tell us a little bit about you and your project.
My name is Tenet Huerta. My film is Son of Monarchs. Now it's in Sundance, but the world premiere was in Morelia, Michoacán, the Morelia Film Festival in Mexico. So now is the first time that we are on stage, and this amazing festival is a perfect portrait for this kind of stories.
Beautiful, cool. And I mean, this man needs absolutely zero introduction. He's one of the icons of our time, and one of my dear friends and an ally of mine my entire career. A guy who's uplifted all of us Latinos up there, and it's giving us an image to be proud of on screen. So Clifton.
I appreciate that, brother. Clifton Collins Jr. I'm here with Jockey this year that I executive produced and I starred in with Clint Bentley directing and Greg Cuidar producing. Beautiful. So I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
Amazing. Welcome all to this virtual Latinx experience. This presentation is going to be fun because they get to make it available to those young up and coming, Latin and Latinx innovators who are going to change narrative and be representative. So your voice today, your experiences are going to be beacons for a lot of those young people and other filmmakers to discover the network and who's out there and who's out here representing us at Sundance as well. So why don't we start with Annie and Alessandra? So you play identical twins in your film, right? So it's not obvious already, and you already mentioned it. You're actually twins. So now let's get to this. What was it like working together?
I don't think we should have maybe, but I don't think we really expected to work together as twins so much. I think we both were on our individual journeys, and the short film, we did a short film version of this movie in 2015, and we stayed close to the director. We stayed close to different people on the creative team, and at some point, my sister reached out to the director saying, like, let's expand this into a feature, and they created this whole world, and I'm happy that we got to explore being twins. It definitely wasn't something I necessarily thought we were going to be doing a bunch, but yeah, it is different from our real relationship in so many ways, but it was a very cathartic experience, and I'm grateful to have been able to work with my sister and with like a whole family environment on set.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels appropriate because we grew up like sharing a room our whole lives, basically until 2 years ago. We shared a room with our beds like just right next to each other. So, it feels appropriate that, we worked on something together and have this thing that we were able to make together.
That's awesome. And was it fun? Was it weird? Was this the first time you guys did something artistic together like this?
I mean, we definitely are artistic partners in a lot of ways. So it didn't feel foreign or anything, like it felt natural. But I mean, yeah, it was fun. I don't know. To me, it was kind of a normal thing. We make stuff together pretty often, so we're used to. We have a way of working together.
It's great to hear that naturally now historically you guys can look back at your memories and having a project at Sundance is iconic, so it's a beautiful memory for both of you. So congratulations on that. So Clifton, so this obviously isn't your first time and having a film of a premiere at Sundance, what is it like to be back? Also, what is it like to be back in such a virtual way? But you've been obviously at Sundance before. You talk a little bit about that and how does it feel to be back again?
It's fantastic to be back with like a true indie. We did this film with a crew of 10 on a live horse track, with no first AD, no trailers, no hair, no makeup, no scripty. It was talk about bare bones, a 9-fingered focus puller because he broke his finger on day 2. But it's like I was telling my reps, the experience this year, it's a new experience. You got to embrace it with new, open, unbiased opinions and just take it in and go with it. I mean, we could talk all day long of like all the crazy stuff that you got into and the partying and the drinking and that's all fun. It's fun to celebrate with your peers and these new filmmakers and new talents, such as these youngsters here that I can't wait to see you guys' movies. But so it in one way it's like I think for my reps it's a little tougher than it is for me. As you know, Wilmer, it's like I think as Latinos, it's our roles can be limited, and you can choose to do that fight to fight outside of the box and. You'll get a little bit of resistance, you'll burn a couple bridges, and you'll have some successes. But in this particular case, I was lucky enough to have Greg and Clint both approach me. This is my second film with them. And, we more or less crafted this together. So I was very lucky in that respect because most of my work now comes from repeat offenders.
Well, your film has already won the Alfred P. Sloan Feature Film Prize. It's focused on science. How was this role different from all the other films that you acted in?
Yeah, well, these are different representation, obviously, in Mexico, Latin America, especially, and now the things are changing in states, which is beautiful. But the brown skin people is always a criminal, rapist, kidnapper or whatever. So this kind of films, it's a really good opportunity to show the people that the brown skin people, there is nothing wrong with the skin people. You know what I mean? So it's just a regular guy who traveled to United States, and he's a scientific who is making research about the butterflies, monarchs butterflies, and trying to turn on and off some genes in the wings of the butterfly. So it's a deep trouble inside himself, and he's looking. He's trying to find his own soul. And the perfect portrait is the celebration of the Day of the Dead in Mexico, because exactly the day when the butterflies arrived to Michoacan is the day when we celebrate the Day of the Dead. So it happens at the same time. So the tradition in Michoacan is the butterflies are the souls of the people, going back to their towns and cities. So it's a beautiful metaphor about the migration and about the people, how the people has to move to another country, in this case, United States and New York specifically. And you always are looking at the South, well, you're wishing all the time to go back to your ground, to tierra. So that's a powerful. I think it's a powerful message. So I'm really proud and really happy to be in the Sundance now. As I mentioned before, the premiere was in Michoacan, and the film festival is around the Day of the Day of the Dead. It's more or less, I think it's like 2 weeks after, something like that, but it's at the perfect time for the things things happens. And I'm now talk with you guys and share the experience and share this space for Latin culture. I personally, I don't understand what Latin means, but the Latin culture and what we share between all of the people who live in this part of the continent. So it's a beautiful, and it's such a great experience. And I hope to see you, all of you guys, in the future and work together.
Awesome, thank you.
Isn't that funny how we're all called Latino or Latin or Latinx, but none of us speak Latin?
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take it. Okay, call me what you want.
Furthermore, Clifton, I mean, I want to get into a little bit more of your films as well. Thank you, Tenet, for walking us through the beautiful essence and the spirit of your film. But there's also a really interesting conversation behind that, because when we first started in the industry, I'm assuming in the early 90s or so, late 80s, when we really, started entering. And then Clifton, you've been in the game for what? You're going into what, 25, 30 years, at least more?
No, 30, I want to say 33.
Yeah, 33 years. I'm going on 24 years, and I'm telling you,
Sure.
Thanks.
I want to say a little bit. You got a couple more stripes than that, but I'll take it. I'll roll. 24 is OG for real. No denying.
Triple OG. You're triple OG. But my point to that is that when we started, they never called us Latin actors. They never called us Latino actors, really, when you think about it. But they were trying to. There was a Mexican character. They had, like, everybody had to be in that same room, and there was probably about 7 of us that literally saw each other at every audition.
Yeah, it was a little different for me. Because I started out with half of my birth name. I started out with Clifton Gonzalez Collins, and then because my birth name is Clifton Craig Collins Jr. and I wanted to give props to Grandpa. And then after about 2 years of acting, I changed it to Gonzalez. Now that fucked people up. They were like, "Oh, Mr. Clifton Gonzalez. What's your background, Clifton? Mexican?" Yeah. That's all they hear. I'm like, "Well, I'm German," and they don't hear that. And I'm Apache and Mexican. I'm like, "Oh, you're Mexican." I'm like, "Right, but I'm German and Apache, and I got no smoke." Like, "But you're Mexican. I am." But are you gonna judge me on my DNA? Or are you gonna judge me on my skill set and talents and what I'm capable of doing? Is that just off the table? So they were gunning for me. When I went to Gonzalez, like, whoa, it was like the Spanish Inquisition. Like, what's going on here? What did I do? I didn't do it. Wasn't me. That's somebody else. Wasn't me.
No, it's very funny. I mean, my name is obviously you can read it there. It's like looks like a bunch like an alphabet, right? And people told me that I needed to change my name because it didn't sound Latino enough.
Mm.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Wilmer Valderrama was not Latino enough. They're like, that looks like Italian and German. I don't know. It's like, maybe you should have like a more Latino name. And I was like, dude, this is my government name. I don't know what to tell you.
If you would have pronounced it Valderrama, like gravitas, they'd be like, whoa.
You can tell them, you should read story. You know that Europeans conquered the continent. That's why we have these last names. Valderrama, that sounds Spaniard or Italian or Portuguese, is because they come to this continent and conquer all the continent. Yeah. So maybe
you're pissing them off.
Read the story, man.
Yeah, don't throw education at them or history.
They'll be like,
yeah, they don't relate, But it's things people ask all the time about, they're like, why, Colombia and Venezuela, there's all these European names. I'm like, well, during World War II, everybody fled the war and then went to Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, and like that's where there's all these European influences. But anyways, I don't want to drift too much away from our two young ladies here. I'd love to hear you guys a little bit about your film. Tell us a little bit about your film and how you feel about being in Sundance.
I love the combo. I'm just grateful to be here and grateful to be at Sundance, and I love listening to this. I'm honored. Our film. Do you want to do, Ali? Do you want to do the synopsis?
Yeah. So our film is in a way, it's a continuation of the short. The short takes place 6 years prior, and
the prequel.
Yeah, sort of like a prequel. The short premiered at Sundance in 2015, and then yes, the feature takes place 6 years later, and
they're both coming of age stories. The original short is about a girl kind of finding her sexual awakening with a man that comes through town, and her sister has issues kind of letting her go and find her independence. And the feature takes place 6 years later and is one of the sisters, the two sisters are living completely separate lives. And one of the sisters has joined a punk band and is like, kind of lives on the run. And at the start of the movie, she's on the run and she ends up at her sister's house and they're reunited. And it's a story about identity, but they end up, finding that they need opposite things from each other, and that where one needs safety, the other one might need more danger in their life. And so that's it.
Do you swap identities?
Maybe.
That's tough because you kind of look the same.
That would be a good idea, though.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Damn, I should have swapped my look with somebody else, not my twin. I'm gonna disguise myself as my twin.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, cool, man. All of your films sound really good. Hey, Clift, I'd love for you to explain us, give us a taste of what your film is about.
It's loosely an athlete, a jockey who's on his last few legs. The jockey lifestyle is a very tough one. The highs and lows happen very fast. I could be, like Mike Tyson, champion of the world today. and then I can be a full-blown loser tomorrow. Like literally your highs and lows are like somebody who's got like complete, you know, chemical imbalance, you know, so he's got a chance to ride this winning horse, which is something that's very common amongst jockeys. They can, the vast majority of jockeys can look at a horse and be like, oh, wow, that's the one that's going to win the Kentucky Derby. There's like a handful of people that can do that. And this guy's got a chance to do that. And in the interim, he's got this kid that's on his heels, who's tearing up the tracks and the races and winning. And he's revealed some stuff to me that's kind of thrown me off hardcore and kind of makes me think about another life of, you know, that might have to do with family or things of that nature. But, you know, in the interim, my body's breaking down, which, you know, pound for pound, the jockeys are some of the toughest athletes on the planet. I mean, they weigh anywhere from, you know, 105 to, you know, 120 pounds. And, you know, they break bones like it's putting on your shoes, you know, and it's not really considered getting hurt, you know, getting, when a jockey says he got hurt, that it only means one of two things. Either one, you can't ever ride a horse again, or two, you're paralyzed. But anything else, breaking femurs, popping bones, open air bone breakages, that's not getting hurt. Wow. Not at all. They don't even, not even fazed by it. So there's a lot of beautiful drama, a lot of cinematic, like true cinema magic that comes from indie filmmaking when everybody's there for the right reasons. We have Moises Arias and Molly Parker in it, and they're both quite fantastic. This is my second film with Moises. I last did The Perfect Game with him when he was 14 years old.
Oh, man, he's a real deal. I love that kid.
Yeah.
Real deal. Moving into a little bit more of a serious phase. First of all, I want to just kind of bring together in a full circle what you guys have all in common. You're playing characters that are alive, that are real human beings, and you know they're not caricatures of of society. They're not stereotypes, you know. And if anything, you know they live above that perception. So there's something really exciting and really beautiful about the coloration of the stuff and the characters you guys are playing. Something really empowering about it. And it brings me full circle to, the reality of the broad Latinx experience in the entertainment industry is that, we obviously face obstacles in terms of inclusion and representation. We aren't really as represented as we should be in the industry. And when we are, obviously, we're often a tired and dangerous stereotype. So what has been your experience in this? This is, for everyone that like to pop in on this. What has been your experience in the industry so far? I know that all of us you're in different levels of your journey. What do you think the industry is getting? Do you think the industry is getting better? What are the areas you think need drastic change? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And as artists, as visionaries, based on your experience, how do you see that? What's your experience in the industry? Is it getting better, and what needs drastic change?
For me, I've had a problem with personally from beginning to now with the double standards that exist. All these stereotypes and stuff. They're stereotypes for a reason. They come from a real place. They're not just made up. I'm Mexican. I like beans. Sorry, I love beans. This is the way it is. I grew up on it. Comfort foods. But also my base of friends as a youngster were either gangbangers or actors. So that part of our culture is a very it is a part of our culture. I mean, you go back to in Mexico too with the muralists speaking for the people. We had different. The gangs aren't always a bad thing. There's good and bad everywhere. So for me, I kind of had a problem with specifically speaking to a film like 187. And I had two issues. One, and it's something that's being addressed today with the inclusion of diversity with writers, is I had a problem when I was young. Because, when you're a young actor, actress, you're trying to get in on anything you can. You'll do a commercial, a Kellogg's commercial, a McDonald's commercial in English or Spanish. It didn't really matter. You just got to get your foot in the door. But I had a problem with the bad guys, like the gang bangers in the beginning. My issues weren't that I was auditioning for a gangbanger. My issue was that it wasn't written real, because I just left Watts, or I just left South Central, or I just left, I just left county prison to visit a friend to go to an audition, and I'm reading some corny stuff that some white dude wrote that doesn't really know about it. But then you get somebody to write something authentic, closer to 187, where I had more of a collaborative experience with Kevin Reynolds in rewriting a lot of the dialogue to make it more authentic, all the while bouncing stuff off my gangbanger friends, to do work that you're proud of, and then to have it vilified and or demonized. I'm like, well, why is when I play a gangbanger from my culture, I get demonized, but then Robert De Niro, Marlon Brando plays the gangbanger from their culture, and they get nominations. I know the Academy talked about nominating me at the time, but I know our own institutions, and I know we want more positive imagery out there, and then I don't disagree with that. We do need, we cover a vast array of things. I've got gangbanger friends that completely flip their lives around and then to, we're hanging out with Obama like 10 different times, you know what I mean? It's like they flip their lives around. But, I think we should be able to play anything that we're qualified to play. Now, I know Wilmer and I obviously got a lot of years between us. So I'm curious to hear how it's been for the rest of you guys starting out, and which such a beautiful reception. I mean, you got your films in Mexico with winning awards, and then your guys a short, and now the feature. That's a beautiful testament to y'all's talent. So I commend you both, all three of you rather. I don't mean to put you two together as one because you're twins. So the three of you.
It's your movie.
Yeah. So I'm curious about what it's like for you guys. And you're in Mexico, so you got to deal with the whole caste system, and I don't know what the gang situation is there, or casting is like, or.
I have just some movies in States, not a big deal. The big part of my career is here in Mexico. So the problem in Mexico is the racism in the industry. I mean, the people is not rude with you; it's gentle and everything, but the characters for the brown skin people is always the same, and I think that's happened in the United States as well. And I agree with you, Clifton. The people, you need writers with different colors and different experience of the life. If you come from the upper classes, I think you don't have the same experience. You never went through the same things, the same oppressions. So you need to give the chance to everybody in the full spectrum of economic situation and racial situation to tell the stories about the people. If you want to talk about it, if you want to talk about racism, you need a brown skin people or indigenous people writing or directing and producing, because they go through that experience. But if you don't want to talk about it, you want to talk about the common man, the common woman, everybody can do it. And I agree with you again. We are actors, and I love the kind of stories where the common man is going through a difficult experience, and it's a common man in an exceptional situation, and how he can solve it or she can solve it, and that's it. So for me, those are the best stories. But for some, well, a reason that is really clear, because it's racism. They don't think in the brown skinned people like normal people. You know what I mean? The common man is white man always, even in Mexico. Even the 80% of the population in Mexico is brown skin. But for them, for the producers and directors, the brown skin people is the special people. The average is white. So
Right.
all the stories about the normal man, the common man, is white man, and I want that to change. But in States, for me, it's a surprise, because uh, it's in my personal experience. Obviously, I'm talking from my privilege. It's different. Everybody treat me in a different way. They are really respectful, and they are offering me right now different roles. The regular man, the common man, they are offering me that kind of roles in States, not in Mexico. So it's funny, you know what I mean? Because I can perceive less racism in States in the industry than in Mexico. I repeat, it's not because the people in Mexico treat me bad, that they are rude. No, no, no. Everybody's gentle and really everybody's a really nice person. But the characters, the kind of characters that they gave us, the brown skinned people, the black people in Mexico. I don't know if that happened in the rest of Latin America, but in Mexico especially, it's always under racist standards. So, for example, myself, I'm middle class. I went to the university. I studied journalism, but always they consider me like a gangster in the roles. You know what I mean? So I'm trying all the time to make different to give my characters different to build them in a different way every time, to show them then even is the same character all the time or most of the time, I can do it different from each other. So
Make them three-dimensional and layer them.
Exactly. And I don't know exactly how it works in States, but I read about it. I try to read the interviews from people like you guys. That you are in the United States. You are fighting every day. You are open the doors, and thanks to you guys and a lot of actors, directors, and producers that went before me and knocked the doors. Now I have the privilege to travel to the United States in first class flight, have a working visa, and get a role. But that is because of you guys. It's thanks to you guys. That's why for me, it's important to be in this forum and be part of this world, because it's my way to give back something that I taken for free. So it was for free for me. So I need to give them back to give everybody else back that I'm taking.
I really appreciate you saying all those things, but I will say that, you got up in the morning and you kept swinging and you found yourself in a situation that you 100% put the hours for, so when you look at this opportunity, I think that, and you look at what's happening in our countries, I think it's brilliant what you're bringing up, because I grew up in Venezuela and in Colombia, and the ripples of what we thought was normal, marketable, and entertainment in South America, Central America, and Mexico were the ripples of the stereotype that was so carefully built in old Hollywood from the 40s to the 50s to the 60s to the 70s to the 80s, and how we that when now we had the ability to make our own content in our own countries, we had to follow that blueprint. So you think about now the United States, Hollywood is undoing what was done, and people like you are standing up, and you two ladies with outstanding content, outstanding performances, outstanding projects that break through the barriers and found themselves at platforms like Sundance. That's what cracks the ice. That's what continues to open the gate a little wider and a little wider. But, it's very recent, right? I mean, Clifton and I, 20, 30 years in, the last 15 years, the last 10 years is when it started really the paradigm shifting. When things all of a sudden were really multiplying in roles for Latinos, where now people are trying to develop for it. Now, we still need to put that stuff on the air, right? You can't just develop 20 TV shows with Latino as the leads if they're not going to be picked up to series, if they're not going to be put on the air. I mean, you read the tabloids, and not tabloids, you read in the trades, well, they're kind of tabloids nowadays, but you read in the trades over and over and over again. They're like, oh, Latino female lead, Latino male, Latino family, Latino comedy, Latino this, whatever. And then when they pick up all the shows, there's not always out there.
No.
But they're putting millions of dollars in trying to figure it out, but they don't give it the chance. They don't give it the shot. And in the various points of your careers, ladies, I'd love to hear from you guys. And because in many ways, women are having an incredible wave. Women, powerful women are having an exciting time. And most importantly, in television, women I'd say probably 2/3 of the leads of primetime television.
I think it would be so wrong to not acknowledge all of the progress that's been made for diversity in the industry. My biggest thing that gets me is just like, I think like details matter, and I just feel like details so often fall through the cracks. Like I have phases where I'm feeling like really hopeful about where things are headed, and then I turn on the TV and watch a sitcom, and like the character calls herself Cuban American and then pronounces her own name wrong, and I'm like, what happened? Like, you didn't have anyone on set or behind the scenes that could correct that, because there was. So then why is this character being written to have this? I almost feel like false representation is actually more harmful than no representation.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? It's like, why force a Latin character that doesn't actually give you anything real? If you're really just gonna cast a white person in that role and have her pronounce her own name wrong, it's like, you know, in those ways, I feel like there's definitely room for growth. I really started writing, I mean, because kind of as a coping mechanism. You know, when I started, you know, seeing the kind of roles that I was going out for, and then, you know, being told, yeah, you know, you don't look Latina enough, or I don't know, like all the BS. And I was like, you know, I'm gonna make my own work, because you know, it's the only way to, it's the way to do it. I'm like, you know, I gotta write for myself and tell the stories that I know how to tell.
You know, I agree with my sister that in a lot of ways, what we really need is people behind the table, you know, or people that are writing scripts that know the experience and know it specifically enough to not create like a blanket. You know, we kind of jokingly were talking about Latinx as a blanket, but I think all these, we're such a huge community and there's so much diversity within our community that it's almost difficult to talk about us as one community. But one thing I have noticed is that I feel that there's a double standard in terms of how POC artists are viewed. I think in casting, oftentimes POC artists are used to like solve a problem in casting, like create something authentic, you know, like whereas I feel, and because of that, it's harder for them to be seen as whole artists, because people aren't seeing them that way. They're seeing them as like something that is you know, fits a placeholder, like, you know, solves a problem for them.
Got to meet a quota.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing that you guys will probably relate to and probably heard it before, they decided to go in a different direction, right? So I've heard that a few times when I go in audition and it's either me and a white guy or an African American, you know, and the three of us are just like the alts, right? And basically, you know, if they go Latino, they're gonna go with you. So it's a really interesting conversation, because reskinning characters is also not a solution. Developing pilots and saying, you know what, we should make this female a Latina, but then not building that Latina story so that character is authentic to the audience. They just reskin characters. So that's a really interesting thing. As you guys, as writers and as artists, you know, that's a beautiful thing that you guys are able to really build something from your own experiences. And you know, that's unbelievable. So Annie, you're developing your first feature film, right? What's the process been like, and you know, what have you learned along the way?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a huge learning experience. I was lucky enough to work with Erin in writing the script. And I had worked with her before on the short, and we'd become close friends. And so, and she's a little older than me and a little more experienced. And so that was really nice to have her alongside me and in writing, and as a director acting. I mean, she really creates very specific worlds for her actors to play in. And so in a way, she does part of your job for you, which is really nice. It was definitely challenging for me in a lot of ways as an actor, especially because, you know, I was like, writer mode, writer mode, writer mode, writer mode. We're filming. And I was like, oh, you know? And so, you know, kind of having to like shift mental gears and get into the character in a deeper and different way than I could have ever imagined when I was writing the script was definitely challenging. It was my first feature I acted in where I was playing the lead. And yeah, I definitely, it was challenging, but very, very rewarding.
And Annie, I understand you're also writing your own feature. Am I right on that?
I actually am I'm writing a first feature as well.
What is that process been? You're coming out of Sundance, you're, you know, independent queen over here, about to do her own film.
You know, the process has been really focused on the writing aspects right now, and I haven't really gotten into the elements of production or anything like that yet. But my goal with it is that I definitely want to relate my experience in a more direct way than than it was relayed in Superior. You know, I think Superior is it's a female-led project, and the whole team were women. The director's a woman, the DP is a woman. We have an executive producer that's a woman, and because of that, it was, you know, I did feel like a part of my identity was so taken care of in a way that usually it's not, or even in movies you watch that, you know, women aren't taken care of in the same way or viewed from that same lens. But in terms of my Latinidad, we are Latina in the movie. Our last name is Rivera, but it's not a focus of the movie in any way, which in some ways was a relief. It was actually it was nice for it not to be a point of focus, and kind of allow it to be complex and what it is. It's an American experience that's as valid as anything.
Why do you say, I'm sorry, why do you say allowed to be complex?
I think allowed to be complex in that I think a lot of times Latino experiences are really experiences that are written from a point of view that aren't your own. I think sometimes become a wash, and certain details
like more two-dimensional.
Yeah, two-dimensional. Yeah, or like falling into stereotype, or you know, a lot of times for women they're like a pawn in the storyline, or Latinos as well. They're, you know.
I think speaking to just women in general, I think y'all have come a long way. I mean, I've been doing a lot of research in old noir films, going back to the original musicals of MGM Studios, and just talking about Pawn, even below Pawn. I mean, in all honesty, watching it from, I might want to say a PC culture, but at least a thoughtful, compassionate viewpoint to these women were often just pieces of meat and spoken to as such, like stars. And it's appalling. It's like, I want to appreciate these old films for what they are and not judge them by today's standards, but my God, you girls had it rough back then. Holy bejesus.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I meant. That's exactly.
So Tenet, this is a question for Tenet, and in switching slightly gears, I mean, you have brought up, you know, racism and specifically what we've experienced in our countries, and interesting how we inherited that and where that all came from. And you've been very outspoken about your support for the anti-racist movement in the United States, and, you know, the need for a similar movement in Mexico. What do you think activists in Mexico could learn from everything that has happened over the last few years in the U.S.? You know, what can activists in the U.S. learn from those in Mexico as well?
Well, there's a lot of things to learn about the activism in the United States, especially because in the States, the people is talking about this since, I don't know, 100 years ago. 100 years ago, they are talking about it, and they have movements from since then. So in Mexico, for example, most of the people deny that the racism exists. So, you know, it's no matter what, no matter who, nobody in the United States gonna deny that racism exists. Nobody can deny it. In Mexico, the authorities, influencers, actors, directors, bankers, schools, teachers, everybody denies that the racism exists. It's really recently that the people start to talk about it and to understand what is happening. And especially for us actors, I think our arena is to it's the representation, are the representations on the screen, on the screen, sorry, in movies or series or magazines. So that is the place where we need to fight as an actors, as producers or directors or whatever. But you know, it starts. It's just the first step, and it's a different dynamic because in United States, the racism is tend to segregate the people to put them in different places. But in Mexico, integrate the racism in Mexico, integrate. So if you are indigenous and you want to be part of the culture, you need to forgive your language. You need to forgive how you dress. You need to forgive how what you eat. Everything about your culture has to be erased to belong to this monolithic culture, which is the mix or mestizo culture, because which is a mistake and it's a lie. The mestizo culture is a lie. It doesn't exist. It was made it in after the revolution. A guy tried to make one monolithic culture, and to create that culture, he need to erase all the faces, all the shapes, all the everybody in the country has to be mestizo and speak just Spanish. So kids were forced to speak Spanish. For example, in some teachers in the indigenous communities, if the kids start to speak in their own language, they punish them. They hang them from trees. They cut them tongues. They try to be on their knees under the sun, for many hours until they forgive their own language, the language of their parents or their grandparents and all their ancestors. So it's but when you talk about this with Mexicans, they don't believe it. They say no, that's not true. But there are a lot of historical research that pointed to that.
I completely agree with you. And I think even in the United States, it does feel like we're setting an interesting tone for the hard conversations that we've been neglecting and not wanting to have with one another. Because the other thing is one aspect is television, the other is film, the other one is books, the narrative, everything that surrounds you. The other one
Narrative.
is being vulnerable enough to talk to one another about what's uncomfortable. And until we get past the uncomfortability of being able to disagree or agree or just sympathize, empathy is not going to happen, right? So it's really important what you're saying, and I hope that everyone who listens to this understands that like you said, the sun, like we're in agreement that the sun is rising on this conversation, and that the day could be long if we can all continue to talk, and we got to take advantage of the sun while it's out. We can't let it one more time like this.
The more community we have, the better. I mean, you look at the African American community pulling together in so many beautiful ways. I think we need a more unity. You can go back into, I've been writing my grandfather's story and doing the research in that, and just how many of our own people are, put our own people down, in different ways, shapes, and forms instead of elevating. So I think we have things within our culture that sometimes holds us back, whether it's, the machismo, a cultural aspect of it, or things like that we have to shake. I know they have their place in cinema and society because it's part of the stereotype and it's something that's very real. I personally grew up in it, but I can put it on or take it off. I prefer to be, I mean, as artists, I think we all prefer to be more vulnerable instead of like, I'm an artist, like, no, I'm vulnerable. I can cry right now if I want to and not be ashamed. You know?
So a lot of young people, may come across this interview and may hear your thoughts, may see your faces and see themselves in you and see a possibility that they themselves can do this. What would be one piece of advice that you have for another actor as they get their start in the industry or even try to navigate it?
Well, the best piece of advice that I was ever given was, if no one is inviting you to sit at their table, then make your own table.
Yeah.
And invite people to sit there.
I like that. That's good. Anna-Marie?
One piece of advice. Just be resilient, because you're gonna get a lot of no's, and somehow you gotta like keep your delusion truly alive as an artist, and your hope alive.
Actually,
As long as you have that, you can keep pushing until someone gives you some kind of yes.
Yeah. Can you help me to translate this? This is not from me. It's from one of my mentors. One of my teachers is: si vas a soñar, sueña en grande.
If you're gonna
Si
dream,
vas a soñar,
if you're gonna dream,
sueña en grande,
dream big,
porque al cabo cuesta lo mismo.
because at the end it all costs us the same. It all costs us. That's awesome.
If I can just add to all y'all's things, I love the analogy of delusion and hope. I think at the base of that comes a true love for performing and be of service to characters. Yes, it's great to dream big, but also we have to continue to love the process and remove expectations. Once we add expectations to the process, it is no longer a creative process, in my opinion. You go in there, if you're a real actor that likes to perform, I mean, I'm sure when you girls hung out, you always role played and played different roles. And as kids, you'd play cops and robbers, or, cowboys and Indians, and you'd switch roles or be the same roles or whatever, but you never questioned what you were doing. The day didn't grow sour because you didn't get the official role. I always felt that I have control of what I can do in that room. And I was having this conversation recently with Bradley Cooper a couple months ago. And he was like, Clifton, he goes, I'd love to still audition. I love auditioning. I'm like, well, it's because we love acting. He goes, you still audition? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll audition. I love auditioning too. So it's like, you remove the expectations and you go in just for the purity and the authenticity and the organic, all those things that you put together to present a character. I say, I don't ever want to get feedback that he gave a good read. Was I reading? Did I have my sides in my hands? I don't think I did, because I want to, if I'm going to really act, if I want to really create a character, I'm not going to have sides. I'm not going to be reading. I want to hear I gave a good performance. If I'm going to dedicate and give you 10, 14, maybe more hours of my life to create a performance, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. I just gave you a chunk of my life for free. So I want you to remember me. It's not about the role I get today. It's about the role that they're going to give me, a month, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road. I love walking into a room, be like, you know what? God, you did this one audition years ago. I don't know if you remember, it was back I was working for so-and-so or You remember that? And that is some of the most beautiful things. I think at the end of the day, we just want to affect and touch people. So I think the caution I'm trying to share is to remove expectations. And I like to, if I go in there and 9 times out of 10 with my prep, I can walk out with my head up and not even call for feedback. Because quite honestly, I don't care about feedback. I know what I did in that room. I saw their jaws hit the floor. I saw them clap, or they stood up, or somebody was crying, or that's my reward. I think actors rob themselves of the fruits of their labors, thinking that affecting people in that room is not some of our deserved fruits. Those are our presents that we earned.
If I may, I wasn't asked, but I'll offer a word of advice. It's very simple. That really changed my life. When I was 18 years old, you remember the movie Dead Poets Society? So Kurtwood Smith had done this movie with Robin Williams, and Robin Williams showed up to the set of that 70s show to say hi to Kurtwood. And, so Robin Williams comes in, and I'm 18 years old. I just booked that 70s show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my comedic item. All I wanted to do was make people laugh. That's all I wanted. And I asked him, word of advice for a young buck like me, and I've said this a few times, and it really resonates, and I really kept up to my end of my promise, but he said to me, I said, word of advice, and Mr. Williams, he goes, call me Robin. And then, he started like doing the whole Robin Williams thing, and I'm sitting there like, wow, this is Robin Williams talking to me. And then as soon as the noise of Robin Williams is talking to me went down, the advice he gave me, he said two things. One, remember, when you're, he says, remember that your fans, because you will have fans, your fans will have, 2 to 3 minutes of your time for the rest of their life. What 2 to 3 minutes do you want them to walk away with? And I never had a bad day after that. And then the next word of advice says, and remember and never forget that it's supposed to be fun. But before we lag out, because we already stole too much time of you guys' life, why don't we tell everyone, why they need to check out and watch and support your film in Sundance and celebrate your films. Let's start with the ladies.
Come check out our film. It is a female effort, and it is, it's just a project made from love, produced independently, and it's visually gorgeous. The director's amazing. The DP is awesome. Come check it out.
The next Friday, you can check my works. The photo is beautiful. The photographer, he received an award this last year because of his work in a documentary. So in this movie, it's beautiful. So there are a lot of aspects that you can appreciate in this movie. So please watch the movie if you want. If you don't have something more important to do, watch this movie.
There's nothing more important to do than to watch a movie.
Yeah.
All right, Clifton.
I'm watching both y'all's films. Jockey's a very special labor of love. I had to, I cut off all my ties from home. I spoke to 3 people, one of them being my grandmother. And I had to call block my agent because he kept wanting me to read scripts for big money because we had no money. And I'm like, you call me one more time with a script and a movie offer, I'm going to call block you. And he did. And he got call blocked. And then my producer called me like, your agent keeps calling. I'm like, right. So I call blocked him because of our movie. And if you want me to keep doing good work, then just tell him that he's kind of boned until I wrap. I'm not going to call him. I'm not returning no calls. So if you want to see a good movie, we did this for no money. It's a true labor of love, and we made a lot of sacrifices, and it paid off, and it'll steal your heart, I promise. And visually, our DP Adolfo, just everybody across the board. I can't, in all honesty, I can't gush enough about it. It's I'm very excited to share it with y'all. So.
Well, I'm so proud to be in this conversation with you guys. Congratulations. Celebrate this moment. I hope that you, whether it's virtually or in person with your family and your loved ones, I hope you guys celebrate this moment. It is an iconic and memorable moment in any actor or filmmaker's heart when they make it to Sundance. It is a community that loves art, and to have their love and support for your projects is everything. All right. Thank you guys so much from the Latinx House. Make sure you guys enjoy Superior, Jockey, and Sons of Monarch. Beautiful films here at Sundance. So enjoy it so much. And until next time, I'm Wilmer Valderrama.